I want to talk about your experience you mentioned on a previous interview. Just for Laughs is a huge comedy festival that happens in Montreal every year. It used to be the be all end all, the biggest deal possible for a comedian. I know you started at 19. I don't know what year that was, but I started in like 2010.
2011.
Okay, that's when I started too, like 2010, 2011. And I remember at that time, JFL was like the peak, the biggest thing you could possibly do. That had getting into JFL means you had made it as a comedian, that your career was set. You would get on that, and then you'd get on a late night show, and then you'd get your management, and then you'd go on the road and you'd be set. Or maybe you'd get a sitcom,
Or
or maybe you'd get a
they would do pilots. Like a lot Canadian comics used to talk. Like when I first started at Yuck Yucks, like they would tell me those stories. Like in 2006, I went down to Just for Laughs and did a 7-minute spot. They gave me 300 grand and fucking go to LA for
yeah,
3 months
that's all
and
you
make
needed
a
to do to be set
and
for life.
they
I did a
make a
type 5.
they
They
would make a pilot. They pay them like 400 grand, and then they never air it, and they would never have the rights to it, and nobody ever sees it, and it's just buried in some bunker somewhere in like
Wow.
Warner Brothers studio. But that was before social media. And now, I mean, going kind of linking it with the why we were talking about theaters is because the, like the government in Canada gives some incentives slash like they especially with COVID and them the theaters being closed, and they help those theaters by basically giving grants and different government incentives so that they stay open, so that we have any theaters that's subsidized, right? It's like the art is subsidized. So then it becomes, oh, we have these anti-harassment, blah blah blah, they come up with these crazy terms for whatever these companies are even Just for Laughs might have that, like harm reduction policies. And
Oh,
you
let's
know
see. That's
I
really
think,
interesting.
and they
Harm
also,
reduction.
I don't know if Just for Laughs has it, but the actual venues, like if the venue that the shows are at, if it's a theater, might have like, we are on the sacred land of whatever, the Oceanabe, or like some like native thing, which is fine, cool. But then it's basically, you can't. That means if you don't have censored views, you can't perform here, or you don't have left leaning views, you can't perform here. So it actually does harm comics like me in Canada, at least, because then I could make more money. I mean, which is obviously, it's like, oh yeah, you could make, but you can still do your show, yeah, but they're just taking money out of my pocket, and then the government is then taxing me on the money that I'm making at a show that they won't let me do a show and make more money at the place that my government funds are going to fucking keep open. That's the crazy part.
So you're on the Just for Laughs radio, but they won't have you on the festival. Is that correct?
That is right. So like Just for Laughs, yeah, they put me on the radio because it's ran by it's a different thing. But I had a Just for Laughs guy I actually had hired at the time a publicist, and I was like I talked to him. I killed at a Just for Laughs showcase in Toronto, and it was like a pack show, and I went up last. I went up like 13th and fucking smashed it. And then the talked to the guy, introduced the my publicist, like she was going back and forth with him, and then she got him to come to the table about it, and then he was like, oh well, I don't know if he can sell out Montreal. So then I did a show in Montreal at the same place that Just for Laughs was doing a show. They probably wouldn't have had me, but probably realized, oh, too little, like the day of, that I was offensive. So they're like, let's just sweep this one under the rug and get it over with. Even though, and then they make a killing too, which is fucked up.
One of my friends just sent me the code of conduct for Just for Laughs. Let's see. This is very interesting. I wonder if they have anything in here. It's
Here
a
we
sta-
go.
it's okay. Just for Laughs is committed to providing a safe space for everyone attending our events and productions. Just for Laughs activities must be exempt of abusive, inappropriate, or provocative behaviors. It's comedy. Everyone participating in Just for Laughs events must treat artists, patrons, and employees with equality, respect, and dignity, no matter their gender, sexual identity, sexual orientation. I'm all down for that. Treat people with respect. I feel like that's a given. You don't have to put that
But
in a
what
policy.
that translates to is you can't say retard or you can't say certain, or you can't make, if you make a joke, we're going to raise an eyebrow, and maybe you shouldn't be doing that because,
Right.
like, that's kind of what I read. That's what I
You
mean.
can't
Keep reading it. But
you
that's what
can't
that means.
jokingly, call someone a fag. You can't, yeah,
Yes.
nothing. JFL adopts a zero tolerance policy on harassment in all its forms, whether it's verbal comments, actions, or gestures that are repeated and hostile that affect a person's dignity or psychological or physical integrity, which is completely up to however sensitive that person is and could probably be literally anything.
But
Nothing in this.
sorry, I hate to interrupt, but that's one thing I like about Schultz, or love about Schultz, is that when he told a story about this, but I don't know if he still does this when he does Just for Laughs, but when he first did it, or one of those times, they were like, you have to stick to the script, and you have to say this exact thing, or else, like, whatever. And then he just went on and just went off and did whatever he wanted and got like a standing O. And
That's
people were
great.
like, we love it. And then they were like, they didn't say anything. They're like, good job, because they're like, oh, okay, as long as you're making us money at the end of the day. But they have to, all corporations have these like bullshit things in there, and same with all the venues too.
Yeah.
The larger venues.
They have to cover their asses, so that the woke minority mob doesn't, come for their bag, I guess.
What's really sick about it is, like, there was a venue that canceled me in London, Ontario, I think it was, and so many people went and rated their thing. Their rating went from like 4.6 to 4.3 on Google or something, which is my fans doing it, right? And
Right.
I'm not condoning that, but
Yeah,
they
you're not
did that.
telling them to go do that, you're not
No,
encouraging it.
but once they do it, then I looked like somebody sent me like, oh, they're back to 4.6, and all the comments are gone on Google. So it's like, so what are you afraid of having me there, that you're going to get bad reviews or bad comments on Google? That if you get bad comments from the other side, you're just willing to delete them and not even address them. But oh, if we got two people who said that, oh, I'm from the transgender community and I don't like this fucking shit, that's worth more than 70 people. Like, it doesn't make, that's what kind of upset
Right.
me.
Right, it totally depends, like, is this coming from a group who has the right political opinions or the wrong political opinions? And, they will delete accordingly. Nothing in this policy may be interpreted as a barrier to artistic freedom. Okay, so that seems hypocritical and, going against what they're saying and how they're booking. In addition, if you are the victim or witness of a prohibited act under this code of conduct involving an artist or an employee of JFL, or you wish to raise a concern, please email this email. JFL will ensure they assess the situation and act accordingly. Please remember that notifying JFL does not constitute or replace a notification to local law enforcement. So if someone tells a joke on stage that triggers and upsets you, you JFL is encouraging you, it sounds like,
Call
to report it
911.
to the cops. Call
That is
911.
so fucked up. I don't
That is
even think I've ever read this whole thing.
the
Scroll up for a
gayest
second.
thing.
The craziest part is the first thing you read. Nothing in this policy may be interpreted as a barrier to art. What does that even mean? It's just like, you are not allowed to interpret this as a barrier. What if it is a barrier? It clearly is.
Right, you're
But
letting.
not. But it's okay. But that's the shitty part for Canadian comics, is that, like, I'm a Canadian comic who works my ass off. I'm touring the country, and they're like, no, we won't recognize that, and you
Right.
can't come, even though, but we'll recognize American comics, and we won't censor them, and they won't have to adhere to this, basically,
Again, it's like you
which
have to
is
be big enough and make
which is
them enough
fine. I
money
understand
for
that,
them to bend their rules. Yeah,
and I understand that, and I
it's
understand that.
hypocritical.
Yeah, but I understand it. I just don't think. I think it sucks because the fucking festival is funded by Canadian tax dollars, and
Wow.
they're like giving it. From my understanding, and tell me if I'm wrong, but my understanding. Just for Laughs gets money from the government, a ton of money from the government. Obviously, they do from advertisers and all that stuff too. But the other stuff's subsidized from the government, and then they're just giving, like, Canadian tax dollars in the form of USD to American comics. Like, it's
Uh,
crazy to me that they don't. And like, I'm pretty sure the most that any Canadian comic made at Just for Laughs is like maybe $5,000,
oh
maybe
wow. Okay.
Canadian, which is like 140, 200.
Who knows what that
Crazy.
is in real money? I'll
Yeah.
keep reading this. Just for Laughs is committed to providing a safe space for everyone attending our events to ensure that everyone has an outstanding experience at this event. Here are a few tips and friendly reminders. Reminders. JFL promotes and advocates for respect, but I guess respecting the artists to tell whatever fucking jokes they want. Treat artists, fellow patrons, and employees with equality, respect, and dignity, no matter their gender, sexual identity. Sexual orientation, disability, physical appearance, race, or religion. They're mentioning their zero tolerance policy on harassment again. JFL reserves the right to ask anyone not adhering to the policy to leave the premises. I wonder if that includes comics. But you know what? They wouldn't even book a comic that would get to this point where they'd have to, they're
I
not going to
mean,
book.
some of it makes sense. Like, obviously, you don't want comics going nuts or like being like mental patients, but that's not
Sure.
what they're saying. They could easily be like, keep drinking, like make sure you don't get too fucked up or whatever. But like this, I mean, I don't really even like like I said, they don't. Even if I were to get into like I did a show, the show that Andrew Schultz came to was during the Just for Laughs in Toronto festival, and he came and he did a spot, and I sold out the show, and there was no other Canadian comics, to my knowledge, that did any like Just for Laugh shows where they just like sold out their own show and had their own crowd there. None.
No, because
So
if you're at that level, you don't need the festival. You can already
no,
fill your own room. The point of Just for Laughs is
yeah.
if you're a fresh face, if you're a new comic and maybe all you have is a good 5 or 10 minutes, it's so you can get eyeballs on you and maybe get representation and get opportunities. But like the comedy industry has changed so much that if you have the wrong political opinions, you won't even get those opportunities. You people be like, no, no, no. Then you gotta work, 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 work all the way around that system, work around that
Which is
bottleneck.
easy. I think it's actually almost easier to work around it than be a part of it. Like, I'm not really I don't want to come off as I'm like complaining, like, oh, I'm
No,
not getting
you're
enough
not at all.
recognition. But I am. My actual thing is like more Jewish than that. It's like I'm paying taxes, and you're giving the taxes to
My
Andrew Schultz,
taxes.
and
What do
Andrew
I get
Schultz
for
gets
my
the
taxes?
yeah.